Welcome to Create More Intimacy, a podcast for men. I'm Elisa Stoddard, and I help successful men stop chasing sex and start building real connection so they finally feel close, connected, and wanted again. Most men have been taught, directly or indirectly, that weakness is something to hide, not something to examine, not something to share, and definitely not something to bring into a relationship. Weakness gets managed, minimized, and worked around. And if you can pull that off convincingly enough for long enough, you start to believe that performance is protection, that keeping your struggles to yourself is doing your partner a favor. What most men don't realize is that it's doing the exact opposite. Welcome to episode 53, A Man Who Admits He Doesn't Have It All Together. Today I want to talk about what it actually costs you to hide your weaknesses. Not just in your relationship, but in who you become as a man, a partner, a father. And more importantly, I want to talk about what becomes possible when you stop performing strength and start being honest about the places where you struggle. Because there's a version of you on the other side of this that your partner is desperately waiting for, that your kids need, and that you, honestly, are probably hungry for too. Let me start by being clear about what I mean, because hiding weakness doesn't always look like obvious deflection or emotional stonewalling. Sometimes it's subtler than that. It looks like answering, "I'm fine," when you're really not. It looks like changing the subject when a conversation gets too real and too close to something. It looks like getting irritated or defensive when someone points out that you've made a mistake. It looks like doubling down on being busy or whatever so that you don't have to sit with what's actually bothering you. And in some men, it can look like confidence even. The man who has an opinion about everything, who never wavers, who always seems to know what to do next, he is often the man who is most afraid of being seen as uncertain. And yes, on the outside, it can look like competence. Many of the men I work with are genuinely accomplished men. They run companies, they manage teams, they solve complicated problems before noon. And they bring that same energy home. They're decisive, efficient, and in control. What they are less practiced at is saying, "I don't know how to do this part," or "I got that wrong," or "I'm struggling and I don't have an answer." Because in every environment that shaped them, school and sports and work, admitting that you didn't know something or couldn't handle something always comes with a cost. So they learned not to. They learned to look competent even when they weren't certain, to look strong even when they were scared, and to look fine when things were quietly falling apart. That learning doesn't disappear when you walk in the door at home. It just turns your relationship into another performance. Here's what I want you to understand about this pattern. And I understand it's really hard to break. It's not necessarily stubbornness. It's not your ego exactly either. And it's not that men don't want connection. They do. It's shame. Shame is the feeling that something is fundamentally wrong with you. Not that you did something wrong, that you are something wrong. And the deepest fear underneath shame is that if people actually knew the full picture, the doubts and the failures and the moments where you didn't know what you were doing, then they would pull away. They would lose respect for you. They would stop counting on you. And they would see you as less than. So you manage that whole image and you curate what gets shared with others. You present the competent version of yourself and keep the uncertain version locked away somewhere very private. And this is where the research on belonging is actually quite striking, because most men believe that strength is what earns belonging, that being capable and reliable and unshakable makes them worth keeping around. But the opposite is actually true. What creates genuine belonging, the feeling that you are actually accepted, not just tolerated, is being known. And being known requires letting someone else see the parts of you that aren't all that polished. Your partner doesn't need to have all the answers. She needs to know that you're actually in the room, present and real and not performing. And you can't be fully present if part of your energy is constantly managing what she sees. Let me be specific about what happens in a relationship when one person or both of you is hiding. The first thing that goes is depth. Conversations stay on the surface because the surface is safe. You talk about schedules and kids and logistics and, if you dare, money. You manage life together without actually letting each other in. From the outside, it might look like it functions just fine. From the inside, it starts to feel like you're living alongside a stranger. The second thing that goes is safety. When a man responds to vulnerability, his own or his partner's, with deflection or defensiveness, it sends a signal. And that signal is that this is not a safe place where real things can be said. And once that signal gets established, your partner stops bringing things to you. And it isn't because she doesn't want to. She probably desperately does. It's because she's learned that those types of conversations don't go anywhere good. So she stops reaching and she starts managing her own inner world quietly without you. And the emotional distance that follows isn't her pulling away. It's her protecting herself from that wall that she has hit 100 times. The third thing that goes is desire. Ouch. I've said this before and I'll keep saying it. Desire doesn't grow in the absence of connection. It grows in the presence of it. When a woman feels emotionally close to her partner, genuinely close, not just cohabitating, desire has room to exist. When she feels like she's living with someone who is perpetually managed and guarded or performing, desire quietly disappears. And I want you to understand that it isn't because she stopped caring. She probably cares so much. It's really because the intimacy that feeds that desire has been starved out. There is a specific pattern I want to name here because it shows up so frequently with the men I work with. High-achieving men, and I mean genuinely successful, driven, capable men, often use their accomplishments as a substitute for vulnerability. The logic, even if it's never stated out loud, goes something like this. If I am successful enough, accomplished enough, impressive enough, then no one will need to look too closely at the places where I am struggling. And achievements then become armor. And underneath all of that armor, there is often a man who has been trying since childhood to just be good enough, to be praised, to be noticed, to earn the love or approval that felt conditional on his performance. The drive that makes these men successful isn't just ambition. It's often a hunger to finally feel like they are enough. The problem is that it doesn't work that way. No promotion ever fills that hole. No raise confirms your worth permanently. And no deal closed or goal achieved tells the deeper part of you that it can finally relax. Because the problem was never that you hadn't accomplished enough. The problem is that you learned to locate your worth outside of yourself, in things like results and recognition and what other people reflect back to you. And when that's the operating system running in the background, you're never going to feel done. What I often see in these men when they finally begin to slow down, when they start to let their guard down in their relationships and with themselves, that's when things start to shift. They become softer, not weaker, softer. And there's a distinction there that matters a lot. They become less reactive, less rigid, and less hard on the people around them because they're finally less hard on themselves. And that quality, that groundedness, that ease, it's actually more attractive than that whole performance was. Not just to their partners, but to their kids. And it feels better for them too. And let's talk about your kids for a moment, because this doesn't just affect your marriage. Your children learn how to be a good human by watching the humans that they are closest to. When a child grows up watching their father handle every difficulty in silence or with deflection or irritation, when they never see him say, "I was wrong about that," or "I'm not sure what to do here," or "that was hard for me," those kids learn something. They learn that men don't struggle. They learn that showing difficulty is weakness, and they learn that strength means performing certainty even when they don't have it. And then they carry that into their relationships, their own friendships, their own private suffering, and the cycle continues. But when a father can say, "I made a mistake, and here's what I'm going to do differently," that is a lesson that lands differently. When a father can say, "I don't have the answer to that, but let's figure it out," that normalizes not knowing. When a child sees their parents struggle and stay, when they see that failure doesn't mean that they're finished, they learn something about resilience that no lecture will ever teach. You are not just a husband in your marriage. You are a model for what it means to be a person. What you hide teaches as much as what you show. I want to tell you about what I see with a lot of men. I'm just going to put it into a composite because I've heard some version of this conversation so many times. So I'm talking about men in their mid-40s and 50s. They run departments with a lot of people. They've got good jobs. They're respected. And oftentimes they're sought out for their judgment. Many men also have women in their lives who have demanding careers too. And by all external measures, their life looks like it's working. But a lot of times when men come to me and tell me they haven't had sex in a year or two, conversations about it always turned into arguments or silence, and he felt shut out. And many men don't understand why. But when I ask how he shows up emotionally at home, they look at me like I have three eyes, like I've said something in a language they don't understand. Because they're always doing things, plenty of things. He handles all sorts of things at home: finances, grocery shopping, cooking, home tasks, logistics, kids, whatever needs to be done. He picks his kids up late after meetings. He really thinks he's been showing up. But when I ask him when he last told his wife something that was hard for him, They can never remember. When I ask when they last admitted uncertainty to her, not about a decision, but about himself, they all go quiet. And they'll tell me, I don't think I even do that. When I ask why, they always tell me something that they all say. I don't want to worry her. And honestly, I'm worried that she'll think less of me. Guys, that is shame talking. And it quietly is running the whole entire relationship. Because what your wife experiences isn't a capable, reliable partner. She experiences someone who feels completely unreachable. Kind of someone behind glass, someone you can't actually get to. And when you can't get to your partner, not really, after a while you stop trying. What all of these men need isn't better tactics for initiating intimacy. They need to learn how to let themselves be known. And that is a different thing entirely. I want to be honest with you about what this asks of you, because it's not just a mindset shift. It's a practice that feels uncomfortable before it feels natural. Acknowledging your weaknesses requires tolerating the moment where you don't know how the other person is going to respond. And that moment is scary and real. You'll say something honest like, I've been struggling with this, or I handled this really badly, I'm so sorry. And there's a beat before you know what happens next. And that beat is an eternity. It's so uncomfortable. But most men have been conditioned to avoid it. It's also going to require that you stop waiting for safety before you show up honestly. Many men tell themselves they would be more honest if their relationship felt safer, if there were fewer fights, if she were less critical, if things were just better. But here's what I want you to hear. The safety in a relationship is partly your responsibility to build. And you build it not by waiting for someone else to go first, but by going first yourself. Vulnerability creates safety, not the other way around. This also requires giving up the idea that we're going for perfection here. Perfection isn't the goal. If you have been running your life as a performance, as some series of outcomes to be achieved and weaknesses to just totally be concealed, the idea of not having it all together will probably feel like failure to you, but it's not. It's what being human looks like. You are allowed to not know everything. You are allowed to make mistakes and still be worthy of love. You are allowed to struggle and still be seen as strong. In fact, that last one, struggling and staying honest, that's one of the most genuinely strong things a person can do. When men begin to practice this, and it is a practice, it's not going to happen all at once. You're not going to be great at it right from the beginning. When you do this, a few things tend to shift. The first is that the relationship gets quieter, but in a really good way. Not quieter like there's silence happening or tension that's holding everything at arm's length. Less walking on eggshells, less performance, less managing. The second is that their partners respond differently. It isn't always immediate. And it's not linear. But over time, when a woman feels like she's actually getting her partner, not this curated version of him, but him, something softens. There's more ease in conversations, more openness, more willingness to move toward him instead of away. Because what women in midlife especially are craving is not more help, more provision, or more management of the household. What they are craving is emotional attunement, a partner who is actually present, who can hold something real. That is hard. And it's much harder to offer when you are hiding out behind a mask. And the third shift, that's an internal one. Men who stop hiding their weaknesses often describe something they didn't expect. Relief. The exhaustion of maintaining the performance is real, and most men don't realize how much it costs them until they set that sucker down. They also report being less reactive and less hard on themselves and the people around them. When you are no longer defending a version of yourself that you've constructed, there's less to protect. And when there's less to protect, then you can actually be with people instead of just managing them. So let me leave you with this. The man who admits he doesn't have it all together is not a weaker man. He's a braver one. He's the man who has decided that being known matters more than being impressive. He's the man who stopped waiting to feel safe before he shows up honestly. He's the man who can look at his partner and say, I don't have this all figured out and I want to figure it out with you. That's a man that's not less attractive. He's more. That's a man that's not less respected. He's more trusted. And that's a man probably for the first time in a very long time is actually present. Not just in the room, he's present. And I'm telling you, that's where intimacy starts. It's not in what you accomplish, not in how well you hold it together and hide, but in who you are willing to let your partner see when the performance stops. If this landed for you and you heard yourself in some or part of what I described, I want you to sit with that. Not to shame yourself and not to make some big list of all sorts of things that you need to fix. Just to sit with yourself and be honest about where you've been hiding. And if you're ready to do something about it, not just in theory, but actually, that's what my work is about. A conversation with me isn't about fixing you. It's about clarity and seeing clearly what's happening, what's underneath all of this, and what a different way of showing up might look like in your specific life and in your marriage. You can find a link to book a call with me at elisastoddard.com. Take care. We'll see you next time. Thanks for being here. If something in this episode hit home, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more men find the support they need. And if you are ready to get help or take the next step, you'll find the link to book a free call in the show notes. I'll see you next time.